Good morning, everyone. We are learning Mishna Arla, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Aleph, Chapter 3, Mishnah 1. I dedicate this morning's learning in memory of my mother, Mrs. Shalamis Rabinowitz, Shalamis Bas Rav Yaakov Eliezer. So the halacha by Arla that we've been discussing is that Arla may not be eaten, nor may you derive benefit from it. And therefore the Mishnah says the following halacha: Beged shetzavai beklipe Arla, a garment that was dyed with shells of Arla fruit. It was the practice times of the Mishnah to make dyes from plants, and that would include the peels of certain plants, like my pomegranates, and the shells of certain nuts, like my walnuts. So the pomegranates or the walnuts were from an Arla tree, and you use the klipe, use these shells, which again either means, for example, pomegranate shells, walnut shells, to make the dye, and you dyed a garment with it. That's called benefiting from Arla, because now you have a garment that is colored. And the same way Arla is burned, it's something I don't have any kind of benefit from at all, so we don't leave it around, we burn it. This garment's going to have to be burned because we may not have any benefit from it. Now, next case. This let's say this garment that was dyed with dye made from Arla. That garment got mixed amongst others, and you can't differentiate which is the one that was dyed with Arla and which is not, and which is permissible, and the permissible ones. So even if you have, now we've learned until now that if you have Arla mixed into chulin, if there's 200 times more of the permissible against the Arla will be nullified. In the case of our Mishnah, we're talking about that this garment that was dyed with Arla, dyed from dye made from Arla, got mixed into other garments. You can't tell which one is which. If you would be able to know which one is which, you just pull it out, but you don't know. So now the question is being able to. The question now is, would it be nullified amongst the other garments? So the Mishnah says this. This Arabacherim, they got mixed up amongst other garments. Kulam idolku, div Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says they all have to be burned. That means that even though I have 200 against one, Rabbi Meir says it still doesn't get nullified. And the reason is because Rabbi Meir holds that a garment is called a davar shebeminyan. Davar shebeminyan means something that is counted. Counted means that it's an item which, on account of its importance, is sold by unit and not by estimate. That's what a davar shebeminyan means. When you sell, you don't just estimate a bunch of it and sell it. You sell it by unit. You count how many there are. Therefore, a garment, because of its significance, is counted when it is sold. It's sold by unit, and therefore it's considered important enough that it wouldn't be nullified. So therefore, according to Meir, this garment is forbidden. It can't be nullified. It's mixed amongst the other ones. We can't tell which one is which. So they're all in doubt. They're all a question. So they all have to be burned. I'm not allowed to use any of them because any one of them may be the Arla. And according to Meir, the reason why the garment isn't nullified is because this garment is considered significant enough that it is counted. It's a davar shebeminyan. It's counted, meaning when it's sold by unit, not by estimate, and therefore it's not nullified. The Chachamim, I remember excuse me. The Chachamim say, Yala be'echad u'masayim. No, it will come up, will be nullified in 1 to 100. If I have 200 garments, 200 garments against this one garment, it will become nullified, and everything will be permissible. According to the Chachamim, a garment that is dyed is not considered significant enough not to be nullified. We will see later on what is considered significant enough, according to the Chachamim, that it shouldn't be nullified. But a garment, a regular garment that's dyed, is not going to be significant enough to be not to be nullified. And therefore, if I have 200 garments against the one, it's going to be nullified, and everything will become permissible. One other thing I should have mentioned before, and that is in the first part of the Mishnah that says that the garment has to be burned, that if you could actually wash out the dye, the Arla dye, then everything would be fine. The point of the Mishnah that is you can't wash out the garment. You can't wash the dye out. You can't wash the dye out. I'm left with benefiting from Arla, and therefore I have to burn the garment. Now, Mishnah 2 is pretty much a repeat of Mishnah 1, but we'll see what the addition is. Again, you're dyeing something with Arla, with shells of Arla. But this time it's not a full garment. It's a thread. And the thread is the length of a sit. That is a measurement. What is a measurement of a sit? A sit is a Aramaic word, samach yutes. A sit is the space between the index finger and the middle finger when they are spread as far apart as possible. Okay, that distance, that length, that distance, right between the two fingers is the length of the thread that you dyed, and then you wove it into the garment. You don't know which thread is the one that you dyed with the Arla shells, and which ones aren't. That's what Mishna said. Arla, you colored, you dyed a thread, the length of a sit, from Arla shells. The dye was from Arla shells. Then you wove it into a garment. Then you do Ezehu. You can't tell which thread it is. Meir says you got to burn the garment, because if you wear that garment, you're now benefiting from Arla. And since now again, if Meir says it's burned, means according to Meir, it's not going to be nullified. Because according to Meir, even just a thread, it's considered a Shabbat minion. You know, my understanding is when you buy threads, you don't buy them by a bunch, you buy them by unit. Perhaps Reb Meir means to say that now that the thread is part of a garment, and a garment is something that's counted, that's why the thread isn't nullified. I'm not sure. I think the explanation is that he considers the thread itself something that is significant enough to be sold by unit, something that's significant enough to be counted. And therefore, at the end of the day, Reb Meir says it is not nullified amongst the other threads, and therefore I can't use the garment because one of those threads is forbidden for me to have benefit from, and therefore it's got to be burned, like Arla would be burned. The Chachamim say, Yala be'echad masayim. You have 200 threads against this one, it will now become permissible. Because according to Chachamim, if a garment isn't considered significant enough not to become nullified, all the more throw a thread. And therefore, the Mishnah according to the Chachamim, that it will be nullified. 200 against one will nullify it. And that is that's the addition that this Mishnah brings us to the first Mishnah. The addition is showing how far Reb Meir's opinion goes. Reb Meir doesn't only hold that an entire beged won't be nullified, but even if it's just one thread won't be nullified. We continue with the laws of Rechilas from the Chavetz Chaim, Klal Hey, chapter 5, Sif Zion, paragraph 7. The Chavetz Chaim has been discussing the prohibition of believing Rechilas that you hear, meaning to believe when someone told you that someone did something or said something against you. You're not allowed to believe it. Now let's see you did already believe it. You accepted it as a fact. Now you want to do tshuva. Now you want to repent. Tikunai, the way to fix this is you've got to, take upon yourself to seriously stop believing it. Now, stop believing it means that I have to say that the person who told me about it made up a story. And even if it's difficult for a person to think that this whole thing was made up completely, which would make it very hard to not believe it, he should think that maybe the one who said it over either added something to the story or left out something from the story. Or he left out some words from what so-and-so said about him. Or when he told it over to you in a certain manner He was word niggin, a tune, but it means he said it over in a manner that would that could actually, just the manner of saying it, the tone that it was said in, could actually change the meaning from good to bad. Meaning, you have to think about, to stop believing it, and to help you stop believing it, even if you can't accept that the whole thing was made up. But the point is that it could be that this person, when they said or what they did, was not ever any harm to you. But the person who told it over to you told it over to you in a way that he conveyed it in a negative. He conveyed what this person said, that it should be taken in a negative way, either because he said more than he should have, he left out things, or he interpreted negative and told it over to you in a negative form. These could all be reasons why it's not true about what that person said. Whatever it is, this either you have to come to, if you want to rectify the sin of accepting a rechilas, you've got to stop believing it. You also have to accept upon yourself, this is one of the standard elements of tshuva, is to accept upon yourself for the future, to commit to the future that you will not believe Lashon Harah or rechilas anymore. And he should recite, and he says, Vida, he has to confess that sin, as we do on Yom Kippur. By doing so, he will now rectify the prohibited act that he did, if he didn't yet tell other people about it. Meaning, if after you accepted the rechilas, you went and said, do you know what so-and-so said about me? Well, if you did that, you just spoke Lashon Harah about him. And now you're going to have to deal with the damage that you did to him, as we've mentioned previously, and how to rectify that, which you need to ask him for forgiveness. If you didn't do that, it's just what you personally accepted, then the Chavetz Chaim says you don't have to deal with anyone. You have to deal between you and God. And you have to stop believing the rechilas. You have to accept not to believe rechilas again, and confess the sin. Have a wonderful day.